So you're all very welcome to this Education USA undergraduate seminar. Thanks for joining me online. Today we're going to go through just the basics and give you an overview of the 5 steps for studying in the US. My name is Emma Lochte and I'm the Education USA advisor for Education USA in Ireland, and I'm also the communications manager for the Fulbright Commission in Ireland, which deals with postgraduate education in the USA and scholarships. If any of you are interested in postgraduate as well, you can check out our YouTube channel. We did a webinar last year on those Fulbright scholarships for postgraduate study. But for now, we'll be talking about undergraduate study in the US. So we'll be going through how you can research your options, finance your studies, complete your application, talking a little bit about entrance exams and student visas, as well as athletic scholarships. And as I mentioned, we'll have some time for questions in the end, at the end of it. So sorry, there's just one person who can't hear. I'm just going to advise them to check their email. No, apologies for the interruption. So we'll be going through those steps and then we'll have time for questions at the end. Just before we start, we have a number of social media channels, so you can keep up to date with all our Education USA updates on our Fulbright Ireland, Fulbright Era, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram accounts. The hashtag for Education USA is just hashtag Education USA and a hashtag Education USA Ireland. So if you do want to search just FAQs and things that come up, you can type those hashtags into Twitter and you might find some answers to your various questions. And you can always, of course, email me at educationusa@fulbright.ie with any queries you might have over the coming months. And I'll be very happy to answer. So firstly, in terms of US higher education, there are many institutions to choose from. There are over 4,700 accredited institutions with a wide range of types all across the country. So narrowing down your options is one of the first challenges that you face when looking at studying in the US. It's important to note that there's no central government authority, so the colleges and universities are regionally and nationally accredited. There's no official ranking, so make sure you're choosing a college or university program that's right for you rather than paying attention to rankings you see in various different magazines or websites. And there's no national entrance examination, so admission requirements can vary by institution. So it's important to do your research before putting an application together. There are lots of advantages of studying in the US. There's flexibility in terms of undergraduate subject flexibility. You can do cross-disciplinary programs. You can study both science and the arts in your first years, and then narrow down and your major later on. And there are also dual degrees available. There is plenty of choice. There are community colleges, four-year colleges and universities, public and private colleges, universities with large and small, those with religious affiliation, those single-sex schools as well. So there's lots to choose from, and I'll go through those options a little bit more in a minute. In terms of quality, the accredited US degrees are recognized everywhere in the world. They can often lead to higher paying jobs. There's, of course, prestige in having a US accredited degree on your CV, and you'll receive a quality education from any of these institutions. In terms of personal and professional development, studying internationally in the US will grow your independence. It'll make you a hands-on student, grow your international communication skills. It'll also give you access to internships in the US, as well as assistantships, and lots of potential for networking. In terms of the classroom, I'm sure you've heard that US classrooms are very interactive. There's a lot of discussion, so this can enhance your communication skills. In the US, you would be very much expected to do the reading in advance of your class and be ready for discussion with your students and teachers on the day. So it's very interactive. You will, of course, have academic assignments that will enhance your writing skills, your critical thinking and analytical skills. You'll be involved in lots of team projects. And in terms of studying in the US, a lot of our US alum who've returned to Ireland or chatted to us since graduation said that it really enhances their overall confidence, the approach in the US, especially that interactive classroom style. It enhances their adaptability and flexibility, and of course their cultural experience while they're over in the US is very positive. So the types of institutions, it can seem at first somewhat complex for an Irish student. There are public and private institutions over in the States, and the state or publicly owned universities are available, and there are also privately owned colleges and universities. Okay, so tuition is generally lower at public universities, but private universities may offer more financial assistance. So there are also lots of different colleges that focus on subjects. Some colleges may have religious affiliation, may have certain types of campuses and other characteristics. And then there's the community college system, which is a 2-year college, which some of you may not have heard of. And I'll go into that a little bit more to explain it to you. So the associate's degree is what you'd be embarking on if you went to a community college. And this takes 2 years to complete at a community college, also known as a junior college. So you can do this 2-year associate degree and you can walk away with that. Or there's a possibility to transfer to a 4-year university. So you might do 2 years in a community college and then transfer over to do your last 2 years in a 4-year university, okay? And then the bachelor's degree, which is probably what we're more familiar with, would take 4 years to complete. These would be in 4-year colleges, universities, or specialized institutions, and they're very flexible with a wide variety of courses. So that general education, in all of the colleges, I suppose all the 4-year colleges, the first 2 years concentrates on general education, okay, and you'd be undertaking foundation or core courses in the liberal arts and sciences. So as I mentioned, in the States, you can take both liberal arts and sciences at the same time, and then you can assess, what your preferences are, what you're good at, what your passions are, where your skills really lie, before then going on to major in your 3rd and 4th year. Okay, so also very important to note that in the US, there are a number of subjects that are only available at postgraduate level, and these include subjects such as medicine and law. So if you want to study medicine or law, you would have to do an undergraduate degree in liberal arts or sciences, either here in Ireland or Europe or in the US, and then you would take a postgraduate course in medicine or law, dentistry or pharmacy. Okay. In terms of your application, the time frame is very important. In an ideal world, at the end of 4th year or early 5th year of your secondary school, you would be researching about US higher education application process. So you're here, which is a good start. And then you would begin narrowing down which universities you want to go to. And it's a good time to register for admissions exams if they were required for your US college of choice as well. Many people will choose to do those SATs or ACTs, which you might have heard of. They may do them more than once to improve their scores. So the earlier you can get started on those, the better. And also, if you can have them finished before you start 6th year, it will obviously help in that your workload won't be, you won't have to do an extra set of exams when you're already undertaking the Leaving Cert. So then by the start of 6th year, Hopefully you'll be finalising your selection of 4 to 6 universities, and then beginning your admissions and funding applications. And I'll go through funding, financing your studies shortly. In 6th year after the Halloween break, you'd be submitting your admissions applications as well as funding applications for any scholarships or financial aid. Then by spring of 6th year, you would receive admissions decisions. So the colleges would send you out offers at that stage. And then in the summer after 6th year, you would notify universities of your decision and apply for your visa. And in August, September, you can begin your studies in the US. So the 5 steps to study in the USA are to research your options, finance your studies, complete your application, apply for a student visa, and prepare for your departure. So really important in researching your options are to determine the factors that are important for you in choosing your university and prioritizing these. So to think about, does the geographical location matter to you? Do you want to be near perhaps family over the US? Is, at a particular department that really excels in science subject or something like that, that that they have resources and facilities that you are really impressed by. And then, of course, you need to narrow down your options. There are a number of search engines. I'll go through a couple of them with you. And then in terms of narrowing down your choices, firstly, you got to think about the degree. So do you want to do an associate's degree, that 2-year degree, with an option to go on to a 4-year college after 2nd year? Or do you want to do a straight out bachelor's degree in terms of location, again, with family connections? Or, do you want to be close to a city? Do you want to be in the hub of a city? Or would you prefer to be out in on a campus that's more so in the countryside that might have options for sports, etc.? Indeed, for extracurricular activities in general, very popular on US campuses. It's a really important part of college life. So think about, are there sports teams, or is there art, music, and cultural activities that you want to get on board with? In terms of funding, it's really important to have a look at this. As most of you will know, universities in the US can be expensive. You need to think about how you're going to fund your studies, what opportunities are available. Many of you might have one particular college in mind, but I would say to you that if you're going to put the effort into applying to that one college, maybe consider thinking outside the box for your 2nd and 3rd options, because there are many very high quality colleges that you may not have heard of that might offer financial assistance to international students if they're looking to internationalize themselves, okay? And think about prestige, of course, that'll be on your mind. Make sure the degree is accredited. All of the universities or programs that you'll find on the EducationUSA website will be accredited, but just double check that if you do come across courses to make sure that they're internationally accredited. Big Future is on College Board. This is the website. You can see the URL here, bigfuturecollegeboard.org. This is a great resource for narrowing down your options. Okay, you can type in, there's lots of different things for the search engine. You can select 2-year or 4-year colleges. You can select public or private, or if you're, that doesn't matter to you so much at the moment. If at the moment you're more thinking about location, whether there's campus and housing, whether they offer financial aid for international students, there's options to tick all of those boxes and narrow down where you want to go to on College Board. So it's a really, really handy resource, and I would recommend that to everybody to have a look. Again, even if you have one particular college in mind, just to expand your options and to think about, the application can take quite a while to put together by comparison to our system here in Ireland. So it's worth having a 2nd and 3rd option at least. So in terms of financing your studies, Many students would look at getting personal or family funds. So if you do have support, how much support is available, have a look into that. Because again, the fees can be significantly higher than, say, the registration fees would be for us here in Ireland. Some students would get loans. That would be typically US students might be able to get loans. It mightn't be possible necessarily for Irish students, but it's worth looking into. Most people will be looking at scholarships and merit, based on merit and need from US universities. So the need-based aid in the US will have a different criteria to need-based aid in Ireland, because the fees are quite different. And then scholarships from external organizations may be an option as well. In terms of the cost, those 2-year community colleges will come to about $3,700 per year. Then when you go up to public universities, out of state, most Irish, European, international students would be parent living in state currently. That would be nearly $27,000 a year. And then private universities, 4-year universities, can be $37,000 and above every year. So here's a little breakdown of kind of what kind of costs you're looking at. So sometimes, when you break down room and board, the room and board might work out better value in the US than here, or in Europe, depending on where you want to go. The cost of living in the area, obviously very busy cities will have a high cost of living, so that's worth taking into account as well. Like note that it's not just tuition, it's obviously your accommodation, your books and supplies, transportation and other expenses while you're in the US, and that's per year. So it's just worth noting that it can be expensive, but that there is financial aid available in many colleges. So make sure that you check all of the deadlines for these financial aid packages and look into it. Give yourself time to look into it, because it could really subsidize your college career. So start your scholarship search early and check the deadlines. We'd recommend working closely with financial aid offices at the university. So if you've got some preferred universities in mind, do reach out to their financial aid offices and highlight that you're an international student, because there will be different options available for international students than there will for US students. Really recommend putting the extra time and effort in to exploring these options. Again, be flexible when you're choosing universities, and this will help you keep your options open and keep it affordable. And bear in mind that you might be taking funding from multiple sources. So you might be getting some financial aid from the college, some help from family or a loan, whatever it is. There is only one scholarship specifically for Irish students that we're aware of, and this is with the University of Notre Dame. They offer Irish citizens with excellent academic records a scholarship for the full university degree. There's a link there if you'd like further information on that. And it's also worth noting that international students on F1 visas can work up to 20 hours per week on campus during the school years and up to 40 hours per week during school vacation. So that could be another source of funding for you. In terms of completing a successful application. So the application is very different, again, to what we're used to in Ireland. There is no equivalent to CAO. You would be applying individually to the university, or there is an option called the Common App, which I will talk about a little bit later. But for the individual applications, say if you're applying to 1 or up to 6 universities, you would need to include an application form, which will have your CV and 2 to 3 essays in it, your admissions exam scores, so whether the university requires SAT or ACT exams, They'll need your transcript or school report, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail as well. There'll be an application fee for each college. You'll need 2 to 3 recommendation letters and your Leaving Cert results. So I know many of you might be applying before your Leaving Cert results are announced, before you've even sat the Leaving Cert. So in that case, they'll want your projected Leaving Cert results, and then you would send on the actual results afterwards. So what they're looking at is your academic achievement. They'll be taking into consideration your junior cert, your Leaving Cert or projected Leaving Cert results, and your results from all of the previous 4 years, essentially. And then the ACT or SAT exam results, those kind of logic tests would be assessing your academic potential. Okay, so the GPA, the grade point average you get from those, would be looked at in addition to your work in school to date. Really importantly, extracurricular involvement. If you have been involved in sports, music, cultural activities, community activities, really take the time to list all of these down, anything you've been involved in the last 4 or 5 years even, or even before, and think about your achievements in these areas, because US colleges are going to be very, very interested in these activities, and we'll see it really as a way to kind of assess you as a student. You also need to lay out your reasons for attending the institution, okay, as well as your own personal attributes. So if you know exactly what you want to do, tell them about your interest in your academic field. If you want to do a broader, liberal arts and sciences, highlight why, that's of benefit to you and something you can't do here, and why that would be great for you in the long run. Talk about your character, your leadership abilities, and why you are a good fit for that campus. So when you're making those individual applications to US institutions, make sure, there's a lot of your essays and your references and everything that you can use for all applications, but make sure in the individual essays you mention why you are a good fit for that specific college. And if you're applying to 3 colleges, make sure that you send the right one to the right college. So the Common App that I mentioned, this is used by 700 American universities. So this can help you to save time. You need to check that your universities of choice are on there, on that list. So you can send this off to all of them, but individual universities on there might ask for supplemental information essays. So these are the ones you have to be careful that you're sending the appropriate one to the right college, to say, I really want to go to your college, and make sure you get the name right. And with this, the www.commonapp.org is the resource. So you can log on there, check what institutions are associated with it, and what you need to do to put your application together. Those personal statements or essays are one of the most important aspects of your application, okay? So this is your chance to write about your interests, your long-term goals and strengths. This is where it comes in, they want you to write about your passions, about your character. They want to get to know you. So again, this is something that we mightn't be as used to writing in Ireland, for, whether it be for studies or for jobs or anything like that. But here they really want to, what's brought you to this point? What challenges have you overcome? And what is it you see yourself doing in life? What are your dreams? What are your hopes and dreams? Essentially, they really want to know. So don't be afraid to get very personal in these essays. I would say the more personal, the better. It's also, I suppose, a way, your only opportunity, to show them your personality. So spend a bit of time thinking about what you want to include in here, and about those extracurricular activities, how they reflect your passions and all of that, okay? There are a number of essay questions, and they would vary by university, but they will have some common elements, okay? So in tips for writing these essays, As always, use clear, concise language and address the essay question fully. Avoid vague statements and cliches, okay? And also watch out for colloquialisms, right? So there's some language that we use in Ireland or even locally in our area that might not make sense to a US audience. So, have family or teachers proofread it for you and ask them to bear that in mind. There might be an admissions officer reading your essay who's never been to Ireland. They most definitely will want to hear about your experience in Ireland, but in a way that they can understand. So just make sure your language is, international for them. You don't have to use American spelling or anything like that. Do not worry about that. But it's just in terms of using phrases and things they might not be familiar with. Just watch that. And don't give the admissions officer the answer you think they want to hear. It's really important to be yourself. That's really something in all the admissions officers and deans that I've spoken to that have visited Ireland, interested in, getting more Irish students to their university. They really want to know about you. Okay, they want to know what makes you stand out and what you're going to add to their campus. Here's some examples of those essay questions. So the first one is tell a story from your life, describing an experience that either demonstrates your character or helps to shape it. Or describe a time when you made a meaningful contribution to others in which the greater good was your focus. So the questions may be framed differently from college to college, but you can see from these examples that there's a theme, about it's demonstrating your character and how you have overcome challenges. So this would be a good, idea or a good point, I suppose, to, if there was ever a time where you weren't so happy with an exam result or something like that, the inclination would be to kind of not mention that, not bring it up, but you could bring it up in your essay and say what you learned from that and how you overcame that issue and now how you're doing well from what you've learned. So it's about experiences and how they helped shape your character and what you learned, the new skills you learned from it. And they really want to know that about your kind of potential for the future. So there's transcripts I mentioned. These will come from your school. Your school will send them to the US University. So you need to chat to your principal or your guidance counselor, your teacher about these and help them prepare for you. So these will list your academic qualifications from 3rd to 6th year, however far along you are. There may be some attendees here who are finished 6th year wanting to apply after a gap year. But for those of you who aren't finished your leaving cert yet, they'll be looking for 3rd to 6th year or 3rd to the end of 5th year. Your guidance counsellor or principal will be providing your junior cert results, your predicted leaving cert results, any academic honours, information about any other qualifications earned. So for instance, if you are really good at English or you really like maths, so if you're coming 1st or 2nd in your class in a particular subject, that's something they could highlight in your transcript as well, okay? Some information about the school and what years you've attended, and they'll need to sign, seal, and deliver those on school letterhead. Recommendations. So these are your referees. You'll need to get a number of references. So you could approach teachers, or you could approach, if you've done community work or sports or music or anything like that, you could talk to your coaches and teachers and ask them would they consider being your reference. So you want someone who knows you well, both in and out of the classroom. Think of it as a marketing tool for you as an applicant. I'd really encourage you to meet with your referee to discuss this letter, over a period of time perhaps, because I found with students in the past, it really helps to talk to to think about yourself, start putting that kind of personal essay together about what your the positive attributes you think you have, what do you have to offer to the campus, And once you've written that down, you can discuss it with your referee, and they can say, okay, yeah, I totally agree with you. Or they might even surprise you, with saying, well, you are also this, this, and this. Like, you have these really positive attributes that you haven't even considered or thought of yet. So it can be a very helpful exercise to talk to your referees before they've submitted your reference for you. You really need to make sure that they're aware of the deadlines. So when you check your, say it's the Common App or individual university deadlines, you need to make them aware of those and make sure that they get their references in on time as well. Encourage them to be enthusiastic, positive, descriptive, and anecdotal, and not to be too modest. So this would be for both you and your referees. Forget modesty, forget being humble. This is really where you want to talk about how great you are. And, that can be in terms of helping the community or in terms of being excellent at a certain subject or your schoolwork or sports or whatever it is. But don't be modest because you will be up against other applications from perhaps US and international students, and they will not be modest. So really give yourself your best fighting chance in your essays and in these recommendations, okay? So then your checklist for your application, you'll have looked into whether you want to do a 2 or 4 year program, narrow down your university options. Good idea to create a deadline calendar to help you with this. Work out whether you need to take those admissions tests. The admissions tests I'll talk about in a second, and you have to register for them in advance, obviously. Request transcripts from your school, so give your teachers or whoever it is in your school the heads up that you want that transcript. I do have a template that they can use, so if you want to reach out to me, I can send that on. And then for your referees as well, give them adequate time to prepare. Then draft and proofread your application essays. So, that's even if you're not going to be applying till, September, October, November of this year, I would definitely start putting those application essays together, because even if you don't know the exact questions yet, it's generally going to be about the challenges you faced and how you overcame them, and what kind of person you are essentially. So those all need to be submitted by advertised deadlines. And then, of course, bear in mind the funding applications, okay, for the US institutions. Sometimes they can differ. The funding deadlines might be different to the applications deadlines for the admissions, international admissions. So just keep an eye on that. I would encourage you to reach out to the university admissions office and just ask them all these details, because they're quite good at getting back to international students to let you know when the deadlines are. In terms of those admissions tests that I mentioned, there's the SAT or the ACT. These are intended to supplement but not replace students' high school or secondary school records. The Leaving Cert is still going to be important and is typically required. And we'd recommend you sit the SAT or ACT in 5th year or before, if possible. Many people will do the SAT or ACT twice or more even to improve their score. These tests, again, they're kind of like aptitude tests. So the format isn't something a lot of Irish students or international students would be familiar with. So practicing and doing the test more than once can help you to improve. Generally, Irish applicants won't be required to do English language proficiency exams. You can sit the SAT in Dublin. The SAT is in St Andrew's College in Booterstown in Dublin, or the ACT can be sat in Dublin City University. Those are the locations you'll be sitting them, but for all registrations, you need to go to collegeboard.org. Okay, so that's your key website, collegeboard.org. That will give you an overview of when those admissions tests are being held in Ireland. And they're not held every month, so don't leave it to the last minute. And we would recommend usually, devoting at least 6 weeks preparation, getting the SAT official guide if you're studying the SATs, and sitting down and just doing those exams, past exams, papers, going over, correcting it yourself, and then looking at what aspects you got wrong and what patterns are going on there so you can improve. But it would be a good idea to give yourself a few weekends in a row to practice those. They're not really exams you can study for. It's more getting used to the format and working out the questions that they're presenting you with. So it's practice makes perfect rather than memorizing. Here's some handy links that might help you with your applications. I will, in addition to the link to this recording, I can also send you on the slides themselves, so you can have these links to hand. Some more there. Then the visas are usually quite straightforward, okay? You'd be going on an F1 student visa or a J1 exchange visitor visa. This is pretty much straightforward in most cases for Irish students going out, for international students going out. Once you're accepted to the university, you receive your F1 or your J1 visa from your university, your host university in the US. Then you'd complete your SEVIS application and pay a fee. It's $160 online, last I checked. And then you need to schedule an interview at the US Embassy in Dublin. So that will all come after you have been approved by the college. So it's generally quite straightforward, but if you do have any queries, you can check with the US Embassy in Dublin, and we're obviously here to help you as well. So I'm going to talk about athletic scholarships for a moment, for anybody who's interested in applying for those. The athletic scholarships, there are over 150,000 undergraduate sports scholarships awarded each year in the US. They're available to men and women in 25 sports. Awards can go from less than $1,000 to the full cost of attendance for one academic year. So it's important to note that they can vary that much. So be careful, and check exactly what you're being offered if you are offered an athletic scholarship. Athletic scholarships are awarded for 1 year and renewable annually as long as your eligibility is maintained. So if you're applying for an athletic scholarship, obviously you have to be exceptional at the sport, but you also have to maintain a GPA, your grade point average has to be maintained. So you have to study, obviously, as well as playing your sport while you're in the US, and they will assess it every year then. So if you're offered an athletic scholarship to university, it's just for the year, usually on the basis that if you maintain your GPA and you are playing for the seasons, then you will be renewed the next year, but it's not guaranteed as such. The ideal preparation timeline for athletic scholarships is to register with the NCAA or your the collegiate association of your choice. I'll go into those collegiate associations now in a second. Ideally before your junior cert, but any time between third and fifth year, it would be fine. And you should also prepare then to sit your SATs or ACTs like you would for a normal application. But it's just worth bearing in mind that those SAT and ACTs are definitely required by the NCAA, okay? Start of fifth year in secondary school is the earliest point that coaches of NCAA sports are allowed to start recruiting interactions, okay? So if you reach out to them before fifth year, they can't interact with you before that. So it's just worth noting that by the start of fifth year, if you have your footage ready, so whatever your sport is, have some footage ready to go. Obviously, some people will be starting this process a little bit later, but just make sure you have your footage ready to go. And I will tell you a little bit more about the footage and letters to coaches shortly. So the major collegiate athletics associations are the NCAA, the NAIA, and the NJCAA. The NCAA is the largest and best known. There's over 1,100 four-year colleges and universities associated with this. It's very competitive for students with the highest standard of ability in their sport. And there are 3 divisions, okay? There's Division 1, 2, and 3. And with all of these, you need to bear in mind that with Division 1, I suppose, you're going to be practicing for your sport and playing an awful lot, but you will also have to keep up that GPA every year. So you need to really think about, how much time you want to dedicate to your studies and to your sport. Okay, so the Division 1, most schools offer athletic scholarships. Ivy League schools do not. They offer financial aid, though. Division 2 offers athletic scholarships, while Division 3, which is the largest division within the NCAA, there are no athletic scholarships, but financial aid is available. So this one includes some of the most prestigious small colleges, so worth checking out. These are just the sports that are available in NCAA. The man and woman, male and female are the MW there. So to sign up with the NCAA for athletic scholarships, to explore them, you can visit their eligibility center. There is an online fee. You will need to complete their athletics questionnaire and submit your high school transcripts. So those transcripts I mentioned from your school, as well as SAT and ACT scores. So if you're applying for these athletic scholarships, you kind of need to get going a little bit earlier with your transcripts and your SATs and ACTs. Division 3 institutions do not require registration with the eligibility centre. So if you're applying for Division 1 or 2, you will need to register. But for Division 3, you can contact the college or university directly. Okay. Then the NAIA has more than 250 member colleges. There's a high level of athletic ability and some athletic scholarships available. They have a number of sports associated there: baseball, basketball, as you can see, competitive cheer. This one as well, you need to register at playnaya.org. There's again a registration fee, and they require you to fill out a number of things as well. Then the NJCAA, their member colleges are accredited 2-year institutions, so those community colleges, 510 member institutions, and they have 3 divisions as well. Coaches might ask you for amateurism questionnaire. This basically means they want you to prove that you are a student amateur rather than a professional sports person. They're not looking for professional sports people. They're looking for students who are amateurs. So these ones, there's a number of different sports associated again with these, like the community colleges in general. You could have the potential to transfer to a 4-year college after 2 years in this these institutions, okay, and you could transfer your scholarship as well, your athletic scholarship. So some tips to register with the eligibility centres as soon as possible. There's lots of information on these sites as well, so it might just help you explore options. Find out which colleges, universities are associated with your sport on those search engines as well. Prepare your video, post it to YouTube. For these, it's worth noting that these videos would be of you in action, playing football, playing tennis, playing golf, whatever it is, swimming. They do want to see as much competitive activities as possible. So practice is not really what they're focusing on. They want to see matches, they want to see competitions, they want to see you winning preferably and doing a good job competitively. So try and gather those videos together and create a YouTube channel for yourself so it's ready to go. Then you can email coaches at the colleges you're interested in. Sometimes they could contact you if they've heard of you generally through other coaches or international contacts, but most cases you'll be first to contact them. We highly recommend talking to your coaches and friends or past pupils, people from your club who have been to the US for their advice. We have had some alumni who've come back, who had just thought about going for a Division 1 sports scholarship, but decided, I do want to have time to concentrate on my studies, to socialise, and also, when he looked at the footage of the team playing sports, he realised, well, I'm going to be on the bench half the time, and he really wanted to play the sport while he was there. So all of those things are worth considering, and you can look up the videos of the teams playing sports, in your university of choice, and look at the different divisions and see what's the kind of level that you think you'd fit in best. Be persistent, ask loads of questions. The more people you ask, more questions you ask, more answers you will get. For that email to coaches, you're looking at, 3 or 4 brief paragraphs on your sports, your academic achievement, those exam scores for SATs or ACTs, extracurricular activities, again mentioned in here, not just your sports extracurricular activities, if you have others as well, they want to know. Show that you know their team, talk about what you admire about their team and the wins they've had, and similarly with the coach, if there's someone you look up to, it's worth mentioning in your letter. And present yourself in a positive, brief and dynamic way. As always, attach your sports CV, your videos and your pictures of you in winning moments, hopefully, and use relevant names for your attachments. So just clearly label all of those, okay, whether you're putting them on YouTube or whether you're sending them directly. And key piece of advice is to get a serious email. So if your email at the moment is a little bit jokey or anything like that, just make sure that you have a serious one for sending off to them. So also to bear in mind for this for athletic scholarships is think about your academic needs too, okay? Because you're going to be there for at least 2 years, so you want to enjoy your academics and you want to get something out of it from that perspective too. So don't just only concentrate on sports scholarships. Investigate where would suit you best academically, and think about how much time you want to spend on the field or in the swimming pool or whatever it is. And of course, prepare your application to a high standard like you would with your admission. Students will need to apply to the admissions office for a place in the university in addition to talking to the coach about the scholarship. So no matter how much a coach might want you to come to the college, you will always have to pass the bar from the admissions office as well, okay? So the coach cannot make a decision to accept you into the college. The admissions office is who the decision lies with, okay? So you will need to keep a good GPA and all of those elements that I've mentioned for a straightforward college application will apply to you too, okay? And just worth bearing in mind that you can't get a visa. You can't get the visa to go to the US without that admissions office approval. Okay, the coach can't do that for you, so it's really important. The National Letter of Intent, this is something that's used by over 500 institutions when they're offering athletic scholarships. It's not required that you sign one of these, but if you are presented with one, it's important you know it's a binding one-year agreement between the student athlete and an institution. You'd be committing to the school for 1 year, and just to bear in mind, really, if you are offered one of these letters, read the small print, okay? Look at, okay, they've offered you an athletic scholarship. What does that mean? Is that $1,000 a year, or is that a full ride, including, your accommodation and your fees and everything? It can vary quite significantly. So ask for that detail if it's not provided. Read the small print before you sign anything. And also bear in mind that, it's always a possibility they might get an injury or something like that. So is there any kind of, insurance in place that if you do get an injury, they'll still cover your tuition or whatever the scholarship is for, those weeks or that term? It's all just worth looking into before you sign anything off, because it can be very exciting if you get an offer, but just not to sign, agree to anything set in stone until you've read all of the details. So there's some helpful websites for sports and athletic scholarships. And just to let you know, so that's the presentation and the kind of overview of studying in the US and how you can prepare. If you do have any further questions, I encourage you to write them in the chat box now, and I can try my best to answer them, or I'll go off and research and find the answer. But students, parents, teachers and guidance counsellors can also organise virtual appointments with us, with me, my colleague, for any point over the next few months. We do have an advising centre on Stephen's Green usually. That's obviously closed at the moment due to the current situation, but we hope it will be opening by the autumn at the latest. In the meantime, you're very welcome to email me at educationusa@fulbright.ie to book in a virtual session and ask me any questions you like, or you can just send me questions by email. Does anyone have any questions for now? Immediate questions? A lot of information to take in. There's a lot that goes into putting an application together, but it's definitely doable, and we've had many students who have gone to the US successfully and found good financial aid packages or scholarships, but it does take a little bit more work to put together. So please use us to lean on. You know, we can support you in any way possible. We're happy to do so. I don't see any questions coming in, but so if you don't have anything immediate to ask, I'll wrap up our session for now. Oh, I'll just, sorry, there was one question just came in there. How is GPA calculated on Irish systems? So there's no direct kind of translation, but when you put your transcript together, when your school puts your transcripts together and gives your you know, results from the last 4 years and all of that, the admissions officers, the international admissions officers will be looking at that transcript, and they know how to assess it in parallel. And then obviously the GPA from your SAT or ACT exams will be taken into account. But they do, you know, taking into consideration that for international students, you know, we wouldn't be as familiar with those SAT or ACT exams, so they'll take it all holistically into account. So as somebody's just asking, since SAT and ACT exams are cancelled, will they still be needed in the application? Yeah, well, it's hard to know how long that will go on for, that they'll be cancelled, but I would say reach out to the international admissions office in the university they're planning to go to and ask them. And I would imagine they would make some kind of, you know, arrangement to even have you perhaps follow up with an SAT or ACT when they do become available again. So, but they'll be taking into account your transcripts mostly up to that point, I would imagine. Somebody else asked, is there a point where it is too late to start preparing for studying in the US? Well, not really, because I suppose if you're preparing now to apply, you know, this November, you do have the summer to prepare, and even if you want to, if you're dead set on going and it's something you really want to do, you can take a year out and you could use that to prepare if you feel like you don't have enough time at the moment, or you could perhaps consider a postgraduate study. So you could do an undergraduate degree here and then do a master's or a PhD or whatever it is in the US. If you think about doing that, the Fulbright scholarships might be something to consider. Another question, are academic scholarships very rare? They're not very rare. I would say if you are, you know, doing exceptionally well, you would have a good chance. You are up against every other exceptional student, I suppose, across the world. So it's definitely very, very competitive. But, you know, if you're a straight A student or if you're getting all A's and B's, there might be a good chance. Again, it's worth just doing a bit of research on different universities, because, you know, the Ivy League colleges that you might have heard most about, they're the ones that everybody internationally has heard most about. So they will have massive amounts of applications, where there's some extremely good smaller colleges or colleges in more remote areas that might give you a very, very good education, good experience, good internships, and might be looking to internationalize. So they might offer funding opportunities for international students because they want to bring more international students to their campus. Another question here, is an A in the USA same as an A grade in Ireland? It's not the same as such, but an A1 is still, or A plus, is still the best grade. So if you're getting A's, you would be in have a good chance. I can send those transcript templates to you, and it'll give you a better idea of not how they translate, but how they view it, I suppose, because it doesn't directly translate. Another question, many liberal arts colleges in the USA recommend taking 4 years of history, biology, physics, and chemistry for at least 4 years in high school. Will taking these subjects apply as a requirement to international students? That really depends on the college. I mean, if a college is only recommending it. Oh, do you mean, sorry, maybe you mean, is it necessary that you've done them for your leaving cert? I don't think so necessarily. With some certain subjects, it could be, with physics and chemistry, perhaps there are some SAT subject tests as well that some universities will require. So it just depends on the university and depends on what you're planning to do, really. But it is quite flexible usually in what you can take. So it'll just depend on where you're going. Another question I think would be good to put to the international admissions officers. Another question, if I am doing a business and law degree and I want to go on Erasmus exchange to America, do you pay the fees for the Irish uni or the American one? So if you're doing Erasmus or a year out or a year over in the States as part of an Irish program, that will usually be an agreement between your Irish institution and the US institution. So those exchange details will be agreed with your institution. So that could be very different in UCD than it is in UCC, and it could be very different in the business college than it is in the law college, because they have kind of different connections, different agreements with incoming and outgoing students. So it's worth checking with your department in university if you're already in university, or indeed with the admissions office in Ireland if you're considering applying for an Irish university that has an option to go to the States at some stage. Another question, what does a postgraduate application involve? That would be, I suppose, in terms of application, a lot of the same elements. You'd be looking for transcripts for your undergraduate degree rather than your school, obviously. You'd be looking for recommendations from your undergraduate lecturers, things like that. We do have a Fulbright scholarship webinar that's also up on our YouTube channel. So if you check that out, it kind of goes through everything you'd need to prepare for your Fulbright application if you want to apply for a scholarship to do postgraduate study in the US. Thanks for the questions. Okay, I think there's a couple more questions here. For the work visa, does working on campus mean living on the campus and working nearby? So it'll depend on where you're going. There's some universities like the University of Notre Dame that the campus, the town is the campus essentially, and everyone is on the campus together. Whereas then if you went to NYU, for instance, or Georgetown or something like that, there's different buildings dotted around the city. So it can vary depending on where you're going, and those working options on campus as well will vary significantly. So again, something you could ask the international officers, because there's no one rule for all on that. Another question, do you write to the coach in colleges, universities, or the admissions officer at first if you're inquiring about Sports Division 3? I don't think it would matter too much if you bear in mind that you can't write to the coach before 5th year. But if you're past that stage, I'm not sure it would make too much of a difference. You could do both at the same time. Depends really, whether it's what your questions are. If you have specific admissions questions about, what entrance exams they want, what GPA they're expecting from those entrance exams, or what the, even if it's for sports, a sports scholarship student, the admissions officer will probably, be the most informed contact for that, whereas the coach is going to be interested purely in your sports. Obviously, if you have a good grade, good GPA, or good record, that makes it a bit easier for them, because they know that the admissions officers will be happy to have you. But I think, it really depends on your question. Another question, is it more manageable financially to live on or off campus? Again, this can vary so much, it depends where you are. In some universities, all students who are, doing fee-paying programs would be entitled to have on-campus accommodation. And there may be subsidies for that in some colleges. In others, there won't. In some cities, the cost of living is just going to be much less than, it might be in New York or in DC. So all of that is worth researching and investigating, because it really can vary so significantly from campus to campus and from city to city. But I suppose in general, the cost of living, including accommodation, is going to be less expensive if you go outside the really popular, busy cities. So it's also, I suppose, something to consider for, Irish and international students. Campus life is a little bit different, from college life in Ireland, perhaps. And it can have a lot of benefits in terms of making friends and making connections, and especially if you want to have extracurricular activities, it can be really positive. But of course, there are people who would prefer to be in a big city. So it really depends on what your personality is and what your criteria is. Okay, I think that's all the questions for now. Just one request there to link the post-grad video, please. What I'll do is, when I'm sending you the link to this recording tomorrow, I will also send you the link to the postgraduate one, the Fulbright one, just so you all have it, because it's worth keeping in mind for postgraduate studies anyway. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Oh yes, and the transcript template. Yeah, if you want the transcript template, just email me at educationusa@fulbright.ie, and I'll send that to you directly, okay? But anyone who's registered for this webinar, I'll send them out the link to this recording and the Fulbright Scholarship recording. But for anything else, just send me an email directly, educationusa@fulbright.ie. Okay? That's great. Well, thank you all for joining me today. I hope you found it helpful, and thanks for all your questions. Great to see you so engaged. And please do feel free to get in touch with me if you do want to have a virtual session, in the coming weeks or further down the line if you have more specific questions, and I can try and do a bit of research and find out all your answers for you. Okay? Thanks very much, everybody. Have a nice evening.